I'm Professor Kurbjeweit, and welcome to Business, Ethics, and Society. So, I wanted to open up our online class with the same lecture that I usually do in the live class. And I've never done this before. I hope it's going to work out in terms of you being able to see everything. You'll let me know when we see each other online. I know the lighting's not perfect, but I've been teaching online now for maybe 9 or 10 months, and I'm pretty used to doing stuff on the screen, but I've just never tried to shoot a whiteboard yet. This is the first time, and I really want you to have this. I want you to have this lecture from a larger sort of picture-based background, because I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to learn something. And in my mind, I really love to teach. And I probably have said this before in other videos, so bear with me. But I just really love to teach because I also love to learn myself, And what I've noticed in my own education, in my own development, is that when I can take a complex subject and frame it in a picture, it really helps me comprehend what I'm learning. It helps me to connect the dots. It helps me to take in new information and connect it to something that makes sense to me at a very basic level. And then I can extrapolate out into much more, intelligent thinking patterns or intelligent connections much easier and stay organized in my mind. So that's why I want to show you this sort of my opening mental picture for the class. Okay, and I call this picture the ivory tower and the business battle. All right, so this picture is going to start us down a track of interdisciplinary thinking, which to me is the essence of this course. Right, interdisciplinary thinking. What is that? It means that we're not studying just one subject. Like I teach law, we might just study the law. Well, that's one thing, but in this class, we're studying ethics. We're certainly going to be looking at economics. We're certainly going to be looking at law. We're certainly going to be looking at business operations. We're certainly going to be discussing psychology to some degree. So there's so many different topics that are relevant to a business ethics course that it really is an interdisciplinary course. And I think that's fascinating because it's so exciting to see the connection between ethics and law, or ethics and economics and science and politics and all different domains of knowledge connect in this subject. And I've been teaching it for a while now, and I'm always fascinated by how much connectivity there is in this subject. But we need a focal point. We need a place to start. We need a place to come from so we can be organized. And that's why I like this picture, the ivory tower and the business battle. So, and I'll get to this moral imagination point in a second, because it's all going to wrap up into, well, what is moral imagination? Why is that relevant to us? And I think it's actually an exciting topic. So let's look at this ivory tower. What is the ivory tower, right? What is that? And the business battle, what is that, right? And this person up here, what is it that they can do from the ivory tower that maybe these people can't do down in the business battle? Conversely, what can these people in the business battle do that this person in the ivory tower can't do? Think about that for a second while I kind of roll this out and explain it. Right? Think about what these different people can do from their vantage points. So what is the ivory tower? Well, let's consider that the ivory tower is the world of ideals, right? It's the world of theory, right? The world of ideals, the world of what we aspire to be as human beings, our higher nature, right? The good, the true, the beautiful. These are the three chief ideals in Plato's thinking, right? Or you might say, well, compassion is a beautiful ideal. You might think in terms of ahimsa, do no harm. These are Eastern concepts, right? You might think in terms of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, justice, equality, freedom, fairness. These are great ideals under the Constitution of the United States, for example, okay? So these are the ideals that we aspire to. We want to elevate toward ideals. Human beings have always sought to elevate toward ideals, except for one thing, which is that we live in a real world. We don't live in an ideal world. We live in a real world. We live in a world where we've got to grind out a living. We got to make the rent, to make the mortgage, pay the bills, eat food. You know what I mean? So we are an interesting creature because we live in a dichotomy. We're dual being. We're dualistic, right? We live in this sort of inner world of ideals, this world of reflection where we can step back and look at how is life going and is it going the way we want it to? Can we make improvements? Can we make life better? But we also, of course, live in the world of the real, the world of action. Well, I don't have a lot of time to think about how to make it better. I just got to get the job done. I got a deadline to meet, Like, I got to get it done. And so we live in these two worlds at the same time, right? And so these two worlds are represented by the ivory tower in the business battle. The ivory tower, the world of ideal, the world of theory, the world of reflection, the inner world. The business battle, the world of the real, the world of practice, not theory, but practice, not reflection, but action, right? The outer world, the economic world. So the ivory tower is ethics, which seeks to answer the question, how should we live? What is the best way for us to live? And that's a beautiful thought. It elevates us, but it's a little bit pie in the sky. Sometimes it feels like that because that's the ivory tower. Whereas the business battle is like on the ground economics. What are we going to do? And there's certain accepted practices that we will allow. For example, okay, so there's a case I used to teach a long time ago, the Sears case where, customers would come in to get their brakes done or get a muffler or something, and Sears had a practice of selling people more stuff than what they really needed. And customers complained, and eventually Sears got investigated and was eventually sort of charged with fraud, not sort of, but was charged with fraud. And Sears said, well, wait a second, like, we're not doing anything wrong. Like, you come in for brakes and we're just recommending that you get new brakes. And you come in for a muffler and we're saying, well, no, maybe you should also get, or you get the oil, you're coming in for an oil change and we say, well, maybe you should get a new muffler. And we're not forcing people to do it, we're just recommending it. And Sears was arguing that this was preventative maintenance, which was an accepted practice in the undercar care business. They weren't doing anything wrong. It was accepted in that economic field, in that business battle. But customers were saying, no, ethically, we feel like you're kind of misrepresenting. And the investigators came in and said, yeah, we think you are too. We don't think it's preventative maintenance when you replace brakes that don't need to be replaced and you make customers believe you. We don't think that you're actually doing something that's ethical. And so the ivory tower of ethics kind of came down on Sears and said, you know what? That practice that you think's acceptable is not acceptable. Why? Because we want to elevate how you treat customers, how you care for customers. We have to protect customers, okay? So that's an interesting case. It kind of shows what's happening here. Let me continue along this track, okay? So this idea of being able to see the world through both lenses, both through the world of the ideal and the world of the real, the theory and the practice, is very important to be able to have moral imagination. Now, what is moral imagination? Moral imagination is the capacity to see the whole picture of what you're thinking about and the impact of your decision making on the world as it is, right? You're trying to, in moral imagination, you're trying to think outside the box. You're trying to think of ways to act ethically. You're trying to think of ways to elevate the world while being able to understand what's really happening in the real world and what your decision is going to produce. So I'll give you a couple examples. I'll do minimum wage. I want to do healthcare. Let me also add some things about the environment. Okay, so for example, maybe we want to move away from fossil fuels. That's been a great economic industry for a long time. There's certain accepted practices in that industry. But we say, you know what, we actually want to protect the planet a little bit more. We want to protect green spaces. We want to protect the aesthetics. We don't want to clear cut a forest, or we don't want to mine coal in this particular area. We don't want to have, digging for oil in a protected preserve or something, because we want to protect nature because it's ethical to do so, okay? But it also is very costly to do so. And so we have to be able to balance out the world we want to move into and the world that we live in now. And this is this kind of juxtaposition, right? So let me move into this an example, a deeper example where it matters to see the consequences of what you're doing, okay? So let's say that you go, I want people to make more money, which I'm all for. I want all of you to make more money, okay? 100%. I think people should make a lot more money than they do. I really do. I think, minimum wage is whatever it is right now, but they want to go to 15 an hour. Shoot, I mean, you can't live in California. I don't know where you can live anywhere for 15 an hour. You got to make 50, 60, 70, 100 bucks an hour, So I have no problem with 15 an hour. But that's not my point. My point is, if we want to say, well, we should pay people more money because that's the right thing to do ethically, what's going to be the actual impact on people, not just business, on the people that we want to pay more money to? What's going to be the impact on them in the business battle? Well, let's take a look. Let's say, for example, the fast food industry, and I'm not putting them down or anything, I'm just, as an example. Fast food industry says, well, if we have to pay everybody 15 an hour, that's going to cost us tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in the aggregate. So what can we do to avoid those costs, right? Because under the stockholder theory, which is the current law in the Model Business Corporations Act, businesses have to make money for their shareholders. And so they're going to think about how to maximize profits. That's right now what they're thinking. Maybe that evolves. But they're thinking it's going to cost us tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to raise minimum wage. What can we do? I know what we can do. We can have kiosks. We can get a loan, or we can get get more investment from investors, and we can spend tens of millions of dollars on kiosks where people can, through self-service kiosks, order their own food, and then we can just fire everyone who's supposed to make $15 an hour because it's too expensive to hire them. So just fire them all. And so what was the net effect of the great ethical idea to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour from the ivory tower? What happened in the business battle is the people that were supposed to make $15 an hour now lost their job. So they make $0 an hour because their job was replaced by a machine. It's called technological unemployment. This is the point of moral imagination, to understand that, yes, you might want to make the world a better place, but what is going to be the actual physical, real world economic impact on the people you're trying to protect? As a business person, as a business leader, as someone who's going to be solving problems in the future, you've got to see the whole picture. I'll give you a second example. Let's say healthcare. Should everybody have healthcare? Yes. Is that ethical? Yes. It's compassionate. I think that's the right thing to do. There's a lot of different ways you could argue it, but I think, you want to treat people, you want to, in a respectful way, you want to increase human well-being. Yeah, people should have healthcare. Okay, so let's make a law that says everybody working at a company full-time has to get, excellent health care, let's just say, okay? So that's a great idea from the world of theory. But what's going to happen in practice, in the business battle? What's going to happen? Well, let's see. If a business is thinking, well, I have all these full-time employees and I have to give them this health care, this benefit, what if I just reduce their hours from 40 hours a week to 39, and now they're part-time? And so I take a huge swath of my employees, I make them part-time by just shaving off an hour, and now I don't have to give them health care. Well, that's how we just saved a bunch of costs. Well, that's not what the theory said. The theory was we got to give people health care. Yeah, but the practice was people lost their health care. They lost their health care. They actually lost their full-time job. Why? Because the people in the tower who want to make the world a better place don't understand business, right? The guy in the tower can see what's happening, but the people on the ground can see the details. The guy in the tower can see the big picture. The people on the ground can see the little picture. Our job as a student of the subject is to connect these two worlds, to make them come together so that we see the whole picture of our decision making. That is what we're going to be doing in this class. And that, I think, is very cool and very useful because the world needs people that can think in this whole picture.